Today I'm cooking up a vegetarian feast, complete with stuffed portobello mushroom caps filled with creamy goat cheese and some Swiss chard. I have a simple pasta flavored with lemon and basil, and an apple and radicchio salad. It's a lovely meal, perfect for having company over. But the crowning jewel is at the end. It is a beautiful almond cake with a crown of whipped cream and fresh clementines, and it brings the house down every time I make it. So to get started, we're gonna focus on those mushroom caps. So here I have these portobello mushroom caps, and these are real beauties. Now the thing when buying portobello mushroom caps, especially for stuffing, you want them to be kind of big so they can fit a lot of that filling. So you want them 4 to 5 inches across. Now the trick to getting them really flavorful is to marinate them. And the marinade is really simple. It's just a little bit of olive oil, about 6 tablespoons of olive oil. Your regular olive oil is just fine here. We're gonna add some red wine vinegar. You want 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. The bag just makes it easy to marinate. And I have the bag in a dish just in case I have an accident. And last, just some salt and pepper, about half a teaspoon of each. There we go. Half a teaspoon pepper, half a teaspoon salt. All right, so that's the marinade. Now, before we add the mushrooms, we have to clean them up just a little bit. Here I have a bowl for scraps. I'm gonna snap out the stem on the inside. I'm also gonna remove some of those dark gills. Those gills, very flavorful, but in this dish, it makes things taste and look a bit muddy. So the easiest way to do this is use a spoon. You just scrape those dark gills out. You actually see this in a lot of soups and stews that call for mushrooms, because it just helps prevent, as I said, it adds a muddy flavor. So sometimes it's nice not to have that. These mushrooms remind me of when I worked at a gourmet food store called Cowan in Lobel in Albany, New York. And I would work there at nights and on the weekends. And I started out as a cashier, but by the end of my time there, I'd worked in all the departments. And as a cashier, you know, you see everything come through. And there was this chef that came through with these gorgeous portobellos, but they were the size of this cutting board. I mean, it was huge. And he was the chef for the senator or the governor, I can't remember. And I was joking around. I said, oh, it was one side make you bigger and one side make you smaller. And he did not even crack a smile. He thought my joke was silly. But every time I see these big mushrooms, I do think of Alice in Wonderland. All right, that looks pretty good and clean. Now into the marinade they go. The marinade really doesn't change the texture of the mushrooms at all. It just helps flavor them. All right, let me close the bag up. Try not to make a mess. All right, just gonna gently jostle them around, get them all nice and coated. And they don't have to go in the fridge. They can just hang out at room temperature, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. All right, we'll just set these aside. Now time to focus on the Swiss chard, which, as I mentioned, one of the main flavors in the filling of the portobellos. So there we have 10 ounces of fresh Swiss chard, and I washed these leaves already. Just need to prep them up a bit. And you can see this is Swiss chard with the white stems. You could use red stem Swiss chard or even the rainbow, which is gorgeous. You know, it comes in yellow and orange. That would work well here too. Might turn the filling a little bit of the color, but that's all right. So to prep the Swiss chard, I'm just cutting out that thicker stem. Some recipes have you use the stems, especially if it's a soup or stew. They have a very strong flavor. But for this, for the filling, we don't want that strong of a flavor, so we're gonna take it out. Now I'm just gonna cut these into small pieces, about 1/2 inch or so. All right, so we'll cut it lengthwise. All right, then we'll go back and we'll cut it widthwise into pieces. That looks pretty good. Let's put this in a bowl, make it easier to dump into this skillet at the stove, because we're gonna cook the chard, drive off its moisture, add a little bit of flavor before we stuff the mushrooms. So over here, I have a skillet, filled with perfectly toasted crumbs. See that? That's 1/2 cup of panko, about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Only takes about 5 minutes or so to get them to that beautiful golden. I'm gonna put these in the bowl, let them cool a little bit, then we'll finish them with some freshly grated Parmesan. But you wanna let the crumbs cool a bit or else the Parmesan will melt. And that's gonna be the topping for our stuffed mushrooms. So before we cook the Swiss chard, just gonna take some paper towels, make sure you get all those crumbs out so you're starting with a clean skillet again. All right, back on the stove it goes. We're gonna add a tablespoon of olive oil. There we go. All right, that skillet's good and hot because it was toasting those crumbs. Medium-high heat, in goes the chard. We'll cook this down about 5 minutes until it's nice and wilted and we've driven off all that moisture. Non-stick tongs for a non-stick pan. Pretty important, or else you're gonna ruin your non-stick pan well ahead of time. Because non-stick pans, they don't last forever. They're not built for the long term. You start to see that coating go, time to get rid of it and get another one. Because once the coating starts to degrade, it gets into your food and you don't wanna be eating that. To this, we're also gonna add a little bit of salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon or so. There we go. All right, that chard has wilted down. We've driven off the moisture. Now time to add some flavor. Gonna add some garlic, 3 cloves of garlic, pressing it right into the skillet. And just a few red pepper flakes, as much or as little as you dare. I like just using a small amount because if you're having people over, you don't know how spicy people like their food. You just wanna cook this about 30 seconds till it's nice and fragrant. All right. That looks pretty good. Now time to add the goat cheese. And I'm gonna turn the heat off, but I'm gonna add the goat cheese to the hot pan to help it melt and incorporate with the chard. This is 4 ounces of beautiful goat cheese. And pretty much any kind of goat cheese will work here. So add it to the pan, let it melt and warm through. And this is a really great generic stuffing that you could put into all sorts of different vegetables. Back into the bowl it goes. All right, now to finish up the flavoring of this filling, we're gonna add some fresh lemon zest, about 1.5 teaspoons. That's about 1 lemon thereabouts. And some fresh basil. Now you can tear them, you can chop them, it all works. What about 1/2 cup of fresh basil? All right, we're just gonna let the residual heat wilt that basil a little bit. All right, that's the filling. All said and done. Set this aside. And back to the topping. Here we have the toasted breadcrumbs. Now that they've cooled, just gonna finish it off with a little bit of freshly grated parm, about 1/2 cup. This will be the crown on our stuffed portobello mushrooms. That's it for the prep for the stuffed mushrooms. We have the mushroom caps marinating, the filling to topping. All I have to do is clean up, and when we come back, we'll make the salad, start the pasta, and cook the mushrooms.
Are you ready to take your cooking to the next level?
Introducing the complete America's Test Kitchen TV show cookbook.
Featuring every recipe from every episode of America's Test Kitchen. That's thousands of recipes. That texture is unbelievable. Reviews
Gadgets you didn't know you needed.
and tips.
Yes, there's some terrible choices, but there are also some amazing choices.
We've spilled all of our secrets and included our insider notes alongside each recipe.
Plus, there's a handy shopping guide so you know exactly what to grab when you're at the store.
And of course, it makes an excellent gift. Get your copy today at americastestkitchen.com.
These portobello mushroom caps are nicely marinated and they're ready for the oven. So what I'm gonna do is take them out of the bag and I'm actually gonna roast them for a while before we put the filling in. Because if you think about it, the filling's already cooked, the topping's already brown. We just really wanna cook the mushrooms through before we add the filling. That's kind of a key when making a stuffed vegetable. You wanna make sure that vegetable's cooked through and the filling's not overdone. So separating them into 2 different parts makes sense. These are ready for the oven, relatively hot, 425 degrees, lower middle rack for about 20 minutes. While those mushrooms are roasting in the oven, time to get started on the salad. As I mentioned, this is a radicchio salad, and generally, I'm not a huge fan of radicchio, but in this salad, it is good because the flavors really balance each other out. Now, to cut radicchio into pieces appropriate for salad, you want to cut it in half. You want to cut out this core. It's pretty stern stuff. You just use your knife and you angle and you cut it out in a wedge. And then the rest you'll just cut down into bite-sized pieces. Sometimes I like to take that outer leaf off. It's usually a little straggly looking. All right. All right, there we go. Now, the thing about radicchio is you have to wash it after you cut it. That way you can get the dirt out from all of those layers. So into a salad spinner it goes. All right, now give it a quick rinse. All right, that radicchio is good and washed, ready to turn it into salad. And radicchio has a kind of a tough texture. It's a little leathery, But this salad fixes that because you let the radicchio sit in the dressing for about 15 minutes before you add everything else. So I'm gonna make the dressing real quick. Starts with some good olive oil. This is my salad olive oil. You want about 5 tablespoons of olive oil. 5 tablespoons is just a teaspoon shy of 1/3 cup. There we go. 3 tablespoons of honey, and that honey, I'm not a big fan of sweet salads, but again, the radicchio can really take it. So you want about 3 tablespoons of honey. All right. 2 tablespoons of white wine vinegar. Teaspoon of Dijon. It's pretty good. And then just a little salt and pepper. All right, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper and a teaspoon of table salt. Just gonna whisk this together. Very simple dressing. So good on this salad, and with the pasta and the stuffed mushroom caps, these flavors really go. All right, in goes the washed radicchio. Toss it up. All right, let's make sure you get all that radicchio nice and coated with salad dressing. Set this aside. Again, about 15 minutes is all it takes. And next I'm gonna make yet another dressing. This time it's for the pasta. Now this pasta is very simple because it doesn't use a cooked sauce. You just make a vinaigrette and then you toss it with a hot pasta and it gets nice and creamy. So to start, again, some good olive oil. Want about 1/2 cup of olive oil. And again, because we're not cooking with this oil, you want it to be the good stuff. All right, 1/2 cup of olive oil into the bowl. And it's lemon and basil. That's the flavor profile here, along with the good olive oil. So for the lemon zest, you want about 2 teaspoons of freshly grated lemon zest. Now we're also gonna add some lemon juice. You want about 1/3 cup of lemon juice. Squeeze some fresh lemon juice. There's 1/3 cup. Right into the bowl it goes. A little bit of fresh garlic. Here, I have a single clove. Nice fresh clove that's been peeled. I'm gonna use the rasp style grater again to make it a nice fine mince right into the dressing. Didn't have one of these graters? Well, I'll tell you should probably buy one. They're not expensive and I use it for all sorts of things. But if you didn't have one, you could also mince it to a paste by just mincing the garlic really well and then adding a little bit of salt and working it against the cutting board. That's the other way to get paste, but I think this is easier. All right, tap it off the back. Now, some Parmesan. This is a cup of really good Parmesan. And you can see I've already grated it, again, using that rasp style grater because these fine shreds melt as soon as it hits the hot pasta, and that helps make the sauce. So that's a cup of finely grated Parmesan. The last thing it needs is a little bit of salt, just a 1/4 teaspoon of table salt, and that is the pasta sauce. Of course, we'll add fresh basil right at the end, but nice and easy, super fresh, and because we're not cooking it, you get a really nice hit of that lemon. That's it for the pasta sauce, and actually it's time to cook the pasta. Over here, I have a nice big pot of boiling water. Gonna add a little bit of salt, and in goes the spaghetti. You can use pretty much any kind of pasta here, but I love a good spaghetti. So, all at once, no, I don't break the spaghetti. I like to leave it whole. What I do, however, is as it softens, I start to bend it so it all fits in the pot. All right, pasta's in the water cooking, and you know, the pasta's in the hot water, it's close to dinner time. It's getting close to serving time. Those portobello caps are still roasting in the oven. Radicchio has sat here for a while. The pasta's simmering away. Time to finish it up. All right, so we're gonna start with some apple. Just any sweet apple will do. And all I'm gonna do is slice it into nice, big recognizable pieces. Obviously, I washed this apple first. Okay, now let's get a nice big bowl out for this salad because I like spreading it out so you can see all the bits and pieces. In goes the radicchio that's been marinating in that dressing. I'm gonna toss everything with the radicchio so that everything gets coated with the dressing. In goes the apple. Now we're gonna add some arugula. This is baby arugula. It's just 2 ounces, which is about 2 cups. Give it a toss, make sure everything has a little bit of that dressing on it. All right, get some of those apples on top. Now to finish it off, I'm gonna add some Parmesan. And to do that, you just wanna use a peeler and right on top of the salad, peel the cheese right over the top. That looks pretty good. and some toasted almonds. And these are just whole almonds, nice and toasted, chopped up. You can see there's different sized pieces of the almonds. Some are bigger, some are finer. That's nice. The finer bits mix with the vinaigrette and the bigger pieces add some crunch. And that's it for the salad. Set this aside. Time to check on those mushroom caps that have been roasting away in the oven. Oh, they're so fragrant. Oh, you can see they've shrunk a bit. They still have a little bit of texture, but around the edges they're softened. So now it's time to add this filling. To do that, we're gonna flip them over. 4 mushroom caps. I'm gonna roughly divide this filling into 4 portions. Oh, these are just so impressive. You know, this filling you could easily make a day ahead, especially if you had people coming over, so that all you had to do on the day was roast the mushroom caps. You can see all the juices that have come out of those mushrooms. Again, roasting them upside down means you can get all those juices out of the way so you don't have soggy stuffed mushrooms. That looks pretty good. Now we're gonna put those breadcrumbs on top. Oh. Because they're already toasted, you don't have to worry about browning the breadcrumbs in the oven. Just warm them through and get them nice and crisp. I actually do this all the time when I'm making anything that's breaded and baked. I pre-toast the crumbs so that you can worry about cooking whatever it is through without trying to get the breadcrumbs also brown. That looks good. Back into the oven they go. This time they only take 4 or 5 minutes to heat that filling through. All right, now this pasta has been boiling away, and only one way to tell if it's done, and that is to taste it. Perfect. A little al dente, which is the way I like it. Now I'm just gonna reserve some of the cooking water because we're gonna add it to this sauce. And if you think about it, this pasta water, it's flavored, it has some of that starch in it, and those are good things to help the sauce stick to the pasta. There we go. All right, drain the spaghetti now. Back into the pot it goes, because now we're gonna sauce it. Gonna add this olive oil, Parmesan, lemon mixture right to the hot noodles. And 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Just gonna toss this around till it's nice and creamy. And this is where the pasta water comes in. Gonna add a little right now. Add it as you need to help loosen up the sauce. All right, now the last thing we're gonna add is some fresh basil. Now I washed this basil already. I'm not gonna chop it. I'm just gonna tear it into nice big pieces, drop it into the pasta, let it wilt with the heat. Really, any kind of herb would be nice here. Oh, but the basil and lemon and Parmesan, that's a classic trio. Okay, so you have a few pretty leaves to garnish the top of the bowl. Oh yeah. Oh, and the basil hits that hot pasta. Man, did that smell good. All right, into a nice, beautiful pasta bowl. Oh, that's the stuff. Get all that basil. Look at that sauce. Oh yeah, right over the top. Just a couple fresh leaves over top. Pasta's done, salad's done. Now time to check on those stuffed mushrooms. Oh, they are just lookers. Gonna get them off this hot cookie sheet and put them on a platter. This is quite the vegetarian feast. Get some pasta. I like going deep into the bowl to get the saucy stuff on the bottom. Oh, the lemon and the basil. It just is so aromatic in this kitchen right now. Take this guy right here. And a little bit of salad. Now that's a good looking plate. The only thing missing is a little bit of wine. And to go with this, I actually have what's called an orange wine. This is an Italian style orange wine made from Pinot Grigio. But orange wine just is a white wine, but as they ferment the juice, they let those skins sit in the juice so that it takes on more of an orange hue. And just adds so much flavor and body to the wine. Whereas normally when you make white wine, you separate those skins right away. And again, all sort of in the Italian vein, that's why it's an Italian orange wine. First up, a bite of this pasta. Oh, you get the lemon, the good olive oil, the basil, the Parmesan. Oh, just a little bite of this mushroom. These mushrooms are terrific. I mean, the mushrooms cooked through, but you still have that hearty, earthy flavor. Then you get the chard and that creamy goat cheese with the crunchy bits on top. Now for a little salad. That radicchio, it's not as sharp and bitter because we let it sit in the dressing. And I love the toasted nuts and those shreds of Parmesan. Oh, and the orange wine is perfect with this meal. And to top off a meal like this, there's nothing better than a rich almond cake with just a little bit of whipped cream and those fresh clementines on top.
Love what you're watching? Take your cooking to the next level with our Essential membership. Get instant access to thousands of recipes, tips, techniques, product reviews, and step-by-step videos. Our Members app allows you to search by ingredient, set dietary preferences, and save your favorite recipes. For those looking to level up, our newest feature, ATK Classes, offers more in-depth instruction led by ATK experts, so you can gain greater confidence in the kitchen. Start your free trial by visiting the App Store or going to americastestkitchen.com/YouTube today.
Time to make the almond cake. And I love this cake because it's not so sweet and it's not very fluffy. Actually, I think of it more like a torte. It's a little on the dense side and it has a ton of almond flavor. And that's because we're gonna use a ton of almonds. Okay, not a right ton. This is only 10 ounces of slivered almonds, which is about 2 1/4 cups. You notice I toasted these already, and that is important for the flavor of the cake. Because even though they're gonna go into a cake that's going in the oven, you'd think they'll toast while the cake bakes. That doesn't happen. You have to toast them ahead of time. So we're gonna turn these toasted almonds into almond flour, right into the food processor. And to help those almonds grind down, we're gonna add just a little bit of sugar, just a 1/4 cup of sugar, and a pinch of salt. All right, to grind these down to a nice fine flour, it takes about 15 seconds or so. Oh, that looks pretty good. Oh, you can smell it right away, the aroma of those ground almonds. Man, that smells good. All right, to this we're gonna add the remaining dry ingredients, just 1/2 cup of cake flour. Now, cake flour has less protein than all-purpose flour, so you get a lighter, cakier texture. Just 1/2 cup is all we need. Right into the food processor. For the leavener, we're gonna add a little bit of baking powder, just 1/2 teaspoon. Now we're just gonna pulse this together till it's nice and combined. It just takes a few pulses. All right, that's it for the dry ingredients. So now we're gonna move over to the stand mixer to actually build the cake because we want to cream the butter with the rest of the sugar. Basically adding air to the butter that will translate into an airy texture in the cake. To the mixer, I'm gonna add the remaining sugar, which is 3/4 cup. All right. And the butter, just 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. You can see the butter is nicely softened. It's been sitting at room temperature for about 1/2 an hour. And that means it'll cream really nicely with the sugar, get nice and aerated. All right, so using the paddle, we're gonna turn the mixer on. This takes about 3 minutes or so. Butter will get lighter in color and look airy. That looks pretty good, you can see. It looks more voluminous because we whipped air into that butter and it's lighter in color. So now we're gonna add 2 eggs. We're gonna add them 1 at a time. All right, that looks pretty good. Time to add the dry ingredients. All right, mixer on low, otherwise you'll make a mess. There we go. Last but not least, we're gonna add just a little bit of milk. This is 1/3 cup of whole milk. And just a couple seconds till it comes together. That's it. All right. I'm gonna do the last bit of mixing by hand, make sure it's nice and evenly combined. All right, let's get down in the bottom of the bowl. Make sure there's no pockets waiting for us down there. You can tell it's a really thick batter. Almost doesn't look like a cake batter, more like a muffin batter. But that's what gives this cake that hallmark torte-like texture. All right, so into a 9-inch pan. I've greased the pan, have a nice parchment round in the bottom. That just makes it easy to get the cake out after it's done baking. Oh, yeah. I'm just gonna use the back of this spatula, even it out a little bit. Kind of levels itself. There we go. A couple wraps on the countertop helps level it out, but also helps get any air bubbles that might be stuck down in the batter. Helps bring them to the surface. All right, oh, you can see some air bubbles that are coming up. Oh, that was a big one. All right, it is ready for the oven. It takes about half an hour, 40 minutes to bake through. Moderate 350 degree oven. I'm gonna rotate it halfway through baking. Here we have the baked and completely cooled cake, and it's time to top it with the whipped cream and the clementines. And this is my favorite part because the clementines, they add flavor, they add moisture, they're good and juicy, and they're a downright looker. All right, so what you want to do to make a pretty top for a clementine is I'm going to peel it using my hands. I'm not going to use the knife because I want to preserve as much of that clementine as I can. These things are so small. All right. That looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna slice the clementines into nice thin slices that are nice and round. And if I see any seeds, I'm just gonna poke them out because you don't want any seeds on top of this cake. Oh, gorgeous. Now time to assemble the cake. I'm gonna put the cake platter up here. This nice cooled cake right in the middle. Cake on the pedestal. Now time to add a little bit of whipped cream. It's 3/4 of a cup of cream that I whipped. Now, I have to say, the recipe tells you to add a little sugar and a little vanilla to the whipped cream, but over the years, I've gotten to like it unsweetened because the cake has sugar in it, with the clementines on top. It's really nice to just have a break from the sugar. So, but both taste pretty good. All right, just gonna smooth the whipped cream out. Not gonna go over the sides, just on the top. Again, a lot like a torte. Right to the edge. All right, time for the clementines. Now we're just gonna lay them on top of the cake, circles, overlapping ever so slightly. There we go. A couple for the middle. And there you go. And there it is, a nice, simple, elegant almond cake with clementines. Now to serve it, what I found is you want to use a serrated knife because it helps you get through the clementines without making a huge mess. So serrated knife, a little bit of a sawing motion to get through the clementines. Yeah, then you can just go straight down through the cake. I'm gonna do a little weaving here around some clementine pieces. Oh, there we go. Now for a little taste. Oh yeah, some cake, some clementine. It is such an aromatic almond flavor. Has a little texture from the ground almonds, not very sweet. And then you get the clean, fresh flavor of the whipped cream and those juicy clementines on top. It's simple, but yet very elegant and a great way to cap off this meal. See you next time.
If you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free trial of our ATK Essential membership. While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app. So, what are you waiting for?